meeting will now come to order. Welcome to the March 24th, 2025 City of Asheville Board of Adjustment. My name is Suzanne Godsey, and I am chair of this board. The Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body that is governed by the North Carolina General Statutes and the city's Unified Development Ordinance. We are authorized to hear requests for variances from the city's UDO, appeals from final determinations by city officials charged with enforcement of the city's UDO, requests for reasonable accommodations, and other requests as may be provided in the city's ordinances. Our first agenda item is the review and adoption of minutes of the February 24th, 2025 regular meeting. However, we did not receive them in time, so may I get a motion to continue?
Motion to continue.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. Now we will begin the evidentiary hearings for the cases listed on the agenda. In hearing cases, the board conducts a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. That means it is like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this board must make its decisions. These rules are different from other types of land use decisions like rezoning cases, which are legislative in nature. This board's decisions are constrained by the standards in the city's ordinance and the facts presented at the hearing. The board hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standards set forth in state law and the city's ordinance. The board must base its decision upon competent material and substantial evidence presented at the hearing. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and standards, not personal preference or opinion. Participation is limited. This meeting is open to the public. Everyone is welcome to watch. Parties have rights to participate fully. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Witnesses may testify as to facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as those facts relate to the legal standards. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts, not opinions. For certain topics, this board needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values and projections about impacts on traffic safety. For variance requests, a 4/5 vote of the board is required to grant the variance. For all other hearings and matters, including the adoption of minutes, the decision will be made by a simple majority vote of the board. Witnesses must swear or affirm their testimony. At this time, we will administer the oath for all individuals who intend to provide witness testimony. If you're planning to provide testimony, will you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on to the variances. Our first variance, the petitioner, Michelle Ward, is requesting variances to the setback standards in section 714-1A1, accessory uses and structures of the Unified Development Ordinance. The applicant is seeking relief from the required setbacks for the side property line of 6 feet for an existing garage structure to be converted into an ADU. The property is known as 125 Louisiana Avenue, and the PIN number is 9638-263295. Daniel, I am sorry, I have a problem with your last name. Will you please remind me again?
That is Fleer, as in rhymes with clear.
Thank you, Daniel, for your patience. Daniel Fleer, Planner 1, will be presenting the case this afternoon. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this is another ADU variance at 125 Louisiana Avenue. You will notice in this title that it is slightly more general in the section that it cites, because we actually, in the course of our study and our preparation for this board meeting, we found that there are two elements of section 714.1 that require a variance for the applicant's proposed development. So in summary, the property owner, Michelle Ward, is requesting a variance to the setback standards in section 714.1, accessory uses and structures of the Unified Development Ordinance. The applicant is seeking relief from the required setbacks for the rear and side property line of 6 feet for an existing non-conforming garage structure to be converted into an ADU. The existing structure is considered non-conforming as it sits 3.5 feet from the property line at its closest point. And just as a note, that's a typo, it's the side property line and not the rear. And we will also be requiring a a slight adjustment to the maximum size of an ADU that I explained in this chart below. So the first requirement being accessory structures may encroach into the side and rear setbacks up to 6 feet from the property line. And in this case, we have a proposed conversion of a portion of a legal non-conforming structure to an accessory dwelling unit along that side property line. The structure is 3.5 feet off the property line. This would be a 42% variance. And the second standard is that accessory dwelling units may not be more than 70% of the gross floor area of the primary dwelling unit. This proposed 12 by 12 foot addition that I will show you on the following slide would achieve a total gross floor area of 544 square feet, whereas the maximum gross floor area on this lot with the size of the primary structure would be 509 square feet. This would be a 35 square foot overage, which would amount to a 7% variance. And just to give you some area context, this is on Louisiana Avenue, right in between Patton Avenue to the north and Haywood Road to the south. And it's about halfway between there. Louisiana Avenue is an NCDOT maintained road. And furthermore, this property is zoned residential multifamily medium density, although on the left or the west side of this particular image, you see that it is close to some RS8 residential single-family high-density zoning. This is the applicant's site plan. As you can see, we are converting the area marked existing garage to an accessory dwelling unit. It is behind the existing home, and as you will see in some site photos later, there's already a fairly extensive fence structure blocking this garage from the road, but it is a movable gate. And then outlined in red on the to the right of the existing garage on this plan is the proposed addition, which would add some necessary facilities for this accessory dwelling unit. Steep slope is not a concern in this area. The average slope is less than 15%. And here we have some site photos. Just going to note a few things. We have this gate structure to the right, on the right side of these pictures, that obscures this accessory structure from view, but we do have the adjacent home to the south, fairly proximate to that property line. And continuing, these are pictures of the structure that we are proposing the modification for. You see the closest property line, the property line for which we would be modifying the setback to, is on the right side of that left image. And so we have the front and the rear view here, and then a couple other front views showing, again, on the right side of these pictures, the proximity to that property line fence, although the fence should not be taken to be a necessary representative of the property line. This ADU will require one parking space, and we can see ample space for that parking in the front of that structure. This is the floor plan, so we see the primary 20 by 20 area of the existing garage to the left, and then we have the two rooms to the right would compose the addition as a part of this. In total, this will be 544 square feet. And I can return to any of these slides as we finish this up. But just to give some additional background, the subject property is a 0.16 acre residential corner lot, currently zoned RM8 residential multifamily medium density district. It's surrounded by residential lots. The adjacent lot to the north of the subject property is a vacant flag lot that provides parking to the lot that sits in front of it, relative to Louisiana Avenue. We have a lot to the rear of this property fronting on Brucemont Circle. And as I said before, the adjacent lot to the south of the subject property houses a single family home. This existing primary structure on the subject property is a one-story, 728 square foot conventional home built in 1964, while the existing non-conforming garage was built in the same year and measures 400 square feet. The applicant seeks to convert the entirety of the existing non-conforming garage structure to an accessory dwelling unit. The applicant is seeking a variance from the members of the Board of Adjustment in order to complete the conversion in addition to that expansion. So just some review and analysis. The minimum setback for an accessory structure in all residential districts is 6 feet from the side property boundary, and the existing garage structure is approximately 3.5 feet from the side property boundary at its closest. The maximum gross floor area for a detached accessory dwelling unit is 70% of the gross floor area of the primary structure, and the proposed gross floor area post-development would be 544 square feet. The maximum allowed, as 70% of the primary structure's gross floor area, would be 509 square feet. So in this case, the proposed ADU would expand the existing footprint and foundations, but it would use existing for what is already there. And the proposed ADU would adhere to all other development standards within the Unified Development Ordinance. And just a recap of the requirements to grant this request, the board would find that unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of this ordinance. The hardship would result from the conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as the location, size, or topography. That the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner, and that the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. So that's the end of my initial presentation. I'll return us to the site plan, but I'm happy to adjust the presentation as the members of the board require. But do we have any initial questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Daniel?
Yeah, just if the addition was somehow on the north side or on top of the picture there, something to that, that would be,
I would have to do some measurements. I expect that it would be. Just as a note, I do have the applicant, Michelle Ward, here, who I believe intends on giving her testimony at some point. But I'll leave that up to the chair to determine when she would like to hear that.
So I think to answer your question, though, part of the setback, well, the garage will still need a variance for its existing nonconformity because of the change of use. So that would the side setback gets wrapped into what we're already approving for the existing garage. And the square footage part would still be applicable because it's over what's allowed for maximum accessory structures or dwelling units, whichever one it is. So, correct. Does anyone have any other questions for Daniel? Okay. Do the applicants have a presentation or additional testimony for the board to consider? You may step forward. Okay.
One quick question. In Exhibit C, Section 6, is that the neighbor?
Sorry, this?
Yes.
Yes, so the subject property's primary structure will be that home on the left of these images.
And so the fence will be removed and the driveway will continue on back to
So my understanding is that this fence is a gate that can be opened. The applicant has confirmed this.
Okay.
That's a key.
Yes, it can be opened.
Daniel, is there any concern or issues with that width only being 7 feet wide at its pinch point between the corner of the house and the property line?
The width between the primary structure and the property line?
It would be the access to get back to the existing garage, the driveway.
Gotcha. In terms of drive widths that we, in terms of the City of Asheville zoning office, would consider, it's only through the apron that we would be concerned about, so that first 10 feet. but that doesn't mean it can't be a part of your considerations as far as I'm aware.
Okay. Is anyone from the public here that would like to give expert testimony or testimony from residents with standing? Okay, seeing none. Discussion, or is there a motion?
I'm okay with it, because she did say her hardship was, this project is really a preference and not a necessity, so I don't like that reason for a hardship.
I'm curious what type of hardships in relation to this property. What hardships is placed upon the owners?
Yeah, so in this case, my understanding of how we generally term this hardship for these existing accessory structures is that the structure is existing and it's there are limitations in terms of for the applicant what they can do with an existing structure in terms of those kinds of how should I try? Sam, do you have any input here?
Daniel is correct. There is a regulatory limbo here wherein this structure, as are all these structures that you have heard, we heard, 7 of these last year? All of them were before the formulation of the UDO. So they do not meet the standards, which means that they can't get the zoning permit, but that also means that they can't there has to be something done with them. So the hardship is that it is an existing nonconformity that does not meet the standards of the Asheville UDO, but still has purpose in terms of supplying Asheville housing inventory, which is so desperately needed.
As we have mentioned before, if there could be a zoning text amendment that addresses conversions of accessory structures into dwelling units to allow the nonconformities to remain, that would be helpful for all of the applicants that have to come before us and express the hardship being pre-existing conditions. So, I would say, obviously, there are some site constraints particular to this piece of property, and that the structure's already there, predating the UDO, and it doesn't make sense to move the building over a few feet to be in compliance with the side yard setback. And taking a look at the floor plan, without having talked to the applicant, it looks like the addition is providing a bedroom, which would change the rental opportunities, in my mind, from being an efficiency to actually providing a one-bedroom apartment. I don't know if that's worth anything for the board, but that's what I'm seeing.
And seeing that this is
It's changing to an apartment, an accessory dwelling unit. It's changing to an apartment, and it looks like the addition is an open deck in the rear, which will provide outdoor and open space for that tenant, and then a bedroom in the rear. If you go to the back behind the photos, Daniel, you can get to the floor plan. Yeah, keep going. Go the other way. Okay, may I get a second?
I'm just like,
Great. It's a Wild West here today. Okay, board members, when I say your name, please say aye or nay. Elliot Smith,
Aye.
Mike Luciano,
Aye.
Chris Von Danish,
Aye.
John Michael Cletus,
Aye.
and Suzanne Godsey is an aye. Your variance has been approved.
Thank you.
Okay. So our second case is petitioner Meredith Bridges is requesting variances to the setback standards in section 784F5, RS8, residential single-family high-density district setbacks. Is that the right one? We are on the aquatic buffer setback one? Okay.
There,
sorry.
there are a bevy of variances here. So
Oh,
there's,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, aquatic
That's the
buffer
start of the
standards,
list.
712.2E2A1 and 712.2F3A and 711.2B, use of public rights-of-way for access and maneuvering of the Unified Development Ordinance. The applicant is seeking relief from the required front setback from 15 feet to 5 feet and relief from the 30-foot aquatic buffer standards for temporary and permanent impacts to the aquatic buffer to construct a single-family home and required site improvements. The property is known as 99999 Norfolk Street, and the PIN number is 9648649286. And Tyler Kelly, Planner 2, will be presenting the case this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and other members of the board, members of the public, city staff. Here presenting for 99999 Norfolk Street, otherwise known as the PIN shown on the screen, for a stream buffer and setback variance. Sections of the UDO we are looking at 784F5, which is just the standard setback standards for the underlying zoning districts. And then once again, we're here looking at the combination of the variances required for permanent and temporary disturbance within the aquatic buffer found in 712.2E1A1, 712.2F3A. The petitioner, applicant, owner, Meredith Bridges, is requesting a variance from the standards found in those following sections for setback relief, and then again, pre and post-construction disturbance within the 30-foot aquatic buffer. And there's that text again. If the variances to section 786F5, 712E1A1, and 712.2F3A are granted, the applicant owner will continue with the typical permitting process for a residential property. The first variance will allow a reduced front setback 5 feet to reduce the permanent impact on the 30-foot aquatic buffer. The second and third variances will allow the applicant to conduct the necessary temporary grading and disturbance activity to construct the permanent structure partially within the aquatic buffer. Per the applicant's submitted documents, the rear of the structure will be cantilevered to minimize permanent impact. And then here you can see the table that shows the degree of variances. So we have RS8, encroachment of 912 square feet into the 30-foot aquatic buffer, near 77% reduction of the total aquatic buffer area. You'll see on the site plan a little bit later, the math is a little funky there, so the variance applies strictly to the lot, but some of the aquatic buffer is within the city's right-of-way, so there will be disturbance within that, but the variance only applies to the parcel itself. Reduction of the 30-foot aquatic buffer to near 26 feet for 12.5 linear feet for the construction of the single-family dwelling, and near 13% reduction of the aquatic buffer boundary and the total aquatic buffer area on the western bank. And then again, the required 15-foot front setback being reduced to 66%, and that's, in order to allow less disturbance within the aquatic buffer. Here in a second, we'll look at the site plans and some site photos so you'll have a better understanding, but just in general, the subject parcel Subject parcel resides within the Kenilworth neighborhood situated immediately north of Wyoming Road. Current site conditions as depicted reveal a .05 acre parcel, so quite small, classified as substandard due to the failure to meet the minimum square footage for the zoning district RS8. The parcel possesses 56.16 foot frontage along Norfolk with a depth varying between 71 feet on the northern property boundary and 34.41 feet of the southern property boundary, resulting in a sort of trapezoidal configuration. Based on my research, the parcel originated from the initial subdivision of the area, so many decades ago, well previous to any development ordinance. And it does have sort of a peculiar right-of-way as well, which we'll take a look at. And the gravel driveway currently is used to access a home to the north of this parcel. And so with the result of these variances being granted, there would be a requirement for a shared access agreement between those two parcels. Applicant proposes construction of a single-family dwelling, 512 square foot footprint, utilizing standard block foundation. The proposed single-family dwelling, two-story structure comprising 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. The applicant further proposes 5-foot front setback measured from the property boundary and the edge of the asphalt where the city street encroaches upon the parcel. And we'll talk about some of the details here. This is again a breakdown of the disturbance calculations. We can go back to this. But we're looking at permanent disturbance of only 20 square feet within the parcel. Area temporarily disturbed. This is total disturbance for in the parcel and outside of the parcel in the right of way. And then area not disturbed, 232. So the math gets a little funky there, but you'll be able to see it a little bit better in these images coming up. Just to review some of the numbers there. The existing non-conforming lot, only one principal dwelling, associated accessory structures may be constructed. It has aquatic buffer covering a significant majority of the lot. You can see on the GIS aerial map, Exhibit A, property contains one jurisdictional stream, unnamed as far as I could tell, with the associated 30-foot aquatic buffer. The tributary flows southward to the Swananoa. Proposed grading necessary to construct the homes does not meet the aquatic buffer restrictions for land disturbance, is why we're here for that variance, or collection of variances. Proposed homes do not meet post-construction aquatic buffer requirements. Approximately 12.5 linear feet of impacted aquatic buffer within the project site. And then again, refer back to that table. There's approximately 44.5 linear feet of impacted aquatic buffer within the existing right-of-way, including Norfolk Street and the gravel driveway. So our street actually is in the aquatic buffer as well. Exactly. So here, I separated this out because we'll do some zooming in, but this is the subject parcel here on Norfolk, and here's the tributary running southward. So you can see the kind of funky right-of-way shape and the shape of the parcel, and then the existing home to the north, and how that all kind of works out currently. And here again is the zoning map, C of RS8 in Kenilworth. The applicant, you've seen this, I think, in a couple of other variances, but they've supported their application with the infographics and handouts from the NC State University Cooperative Extension Program, provide some guidance for their post-construction remediation efforts. Okay, and then here is the site plan. So you can see the aquatic buffer, blue line, kind of meandering with that C shape. And as you can tell, the permanent reduction of the aquatic buffer and the permanent impact is just that small corner there for the footprint and of the main home, and I suppose that's a porch. But then, of course, you have the existing impact, and then, you know, they will have to upgrade this gravel driveway to city standards and have the necessary access for construction, so that area there will be more significantly impacted than, say, on the parcel itself. Any questions about the site plan as presented here?
Looking at the site plan for the proposed plantings, they look like they're off property to the west.
I believe there's one tree shown just to the east of sort of the middle of the home.
So I'm talking about the hatched area that
Okay.
is to, and then ask that.
Yeah, there's also about 12 or 14 pages of other documents that we can go through too.
They have a, it looks like a stippled hatch to the west of the house along the
Is that shown here?
yeah, see the, go down to your.
You'll have to come up to, yeah.
My point, Jane, is that it's that property. I don't know if you're planning on grading off the property.
Do you want to just address that?
Well, wait a minute, does anyone have any other questions for Daniel?
Yeah, Daniel, the gray area behind the dwelling being the dark gray, what is that?
I believe that's a porch.
Go shoot that.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Oh,
so-
here.
Yeah,
That
what
is the parking required for the new home.
I know this is a aquatic buffer. Threat of flooding. Like if the house was there during Helene,
I believe the applicant could speak to that since they currently live there. Correct? Yeah, you can come up. Were you sworn in the beginning?
She was sworn in, the dad was on dad duty. She's good to speak. Can we end staff questions?
Yeah, yes. No,
I really-
Yeah.
okay, well, we'll administer the oath. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may come forward and state your name.
My name is Meredith Bridges, and there was no flooding during Helene. There is a creek, and it goes down, so the creek is down farther, and then the house site is pretty level, and it didn't even get to the top of the bank.
Taking a look at your drawing, if you could describe to me, and maybe I need to get up and point, but towards the creek behind the proposed house, there's a thick black line, which is your property line, and the hatch that's showing proposed plantings is not on the property.
I might need a point just to know. You mean to the left of the property line?
So right here.
Okay, yeah.
Just you're
So
showing
that
that.
is actually the creek itself is actually all the way to the left, and it's like dot, 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 dash line. And so it's a bank. And so
Well, just currently
we
you have
wouldn't
the
go off our property.
proposed plantings, so we would just say
Only-
you can only plant
I can only
within
plant on there.
your
Those
property
are,
boundaries.
yeah, because that would be the people who live on the other side.
And so you're not intending to disturb beyond your property line? You don't have a
No,
plan
no,
to
definitely
take a
not.
look at, so-
Definitely not. It's kind of like flat down there, and then it goes, the bank comes up onto my property. So
Okay,
that
so-
part I don't think is, it's not as steep at the bottom right down there where that is. And we would definitely stay within our property bounds only.
Okay, that's what I was just ensuring that
Yes.
there's no offsite grading.
I think it's because the creek is actually off of our property, why they, yeah, but it should be not like that. And the, yeah, it's the backyards of those people.
Does anyone have any other questions for the applicant while she's up here? Let them have a seat. We might call you back up.
So we can continue to move through some of the other documents.
Thank you.
Here is the existing conditions. So just a little bit cleaner shot without the footprint of the home and the parking space shown. And there you can see the shaded area is within the parcel boundaries. Oh, okay. What happened? There we go. So these were the documents submitted by the applicant to just give a little bit more context. Here we have a site photo shot from the point of view of looking southward down Norfolk in the currently undeveloped parcel. This is just, again, the site plan clarifying, what exactly the total variance would be and the impact for both permanent and temporary. Then here you can kind of see the demonstration of the strangely shaped right-of-way and lack of right-of-way. Just a little bit more explanation again on the hardships with the impact of the street itself encroaching onto their property, the impacts of the buffer with this remaining area here that would show the available building footprint without the required variances. Another shot of Norfolk. The section of pavement of the Norfolk Street, which encroaches onto the applicant's parcel. And then just kind of showing the existing conditions. A lot of the houses on this street, are also impacted by this poor subdivision and dedication of right-of-way with varying setback widths. And here you can see their existing home is almost zero. And then again, we have just the renderings
Well, I have a
provided.
question about that, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that we didn't get to do an adjustment of the building lines that's found in 710-2 because there's no buildings to the south of the home on the same side of the street, or?
We looked at that and we just thought it would be cleaner to just go through since they're already doing the aquatic buffer variances.
Because they were here anyway?
Correct. But yes, they would be able to seek a setback reduction based on that clause, but I didn't do the math for that or anything, so, yeah.
So, and just for the board, there's a section in the ordinance that allows a building to not be required to go as far back as the setback if they're in their But yes, and she's coming back for variance. I was just looking. to
Yeah,
figure
it's,
that.
it's a short street. We could probably find the numbers. I don't think that it would have approached 5 feet necessarily, but we had advised just to seek the setback reduction as a part of the process, just to keep it clean and well understood.
And if I may, Madam Chair, Tyler, the statement that is specifically in that section of the ordinance discusses the block. That is a section that is very clearly written for West Asheville, where there's a clear and defined block. That is not necessarily the case on Norfolk Street. So Tyler was keen in recognizing that this would be more cleanly captured and memorialized through a variance action. But it is, that is why that doesn't apply.
Correct.
But a house being set back closer than 15 feet is not atypical.
Correct. The applicant does intend to save this large maturing tree that's shown on the site plan there. And then obviously you've seen some of these types of images before as the proposed species and plantings to be within the aquatic buffer post-construction. And again, we review these at the residential review level once they submit, and then you can condition any factors that you choose to be included with the application that we can review at the staff level once they get to that point. But it is a requirement for this plan to be provided. All right, that wraps it up for me, unless you guys have any additional questions.
Any
Yeah.
other questions for Tyler?
Daniel, is there any requirement to review the flooding potential? Or,
If it's not in a flood zone, no.
so it's not in the flood zones, what you're answering?
No, the Swananoa River, you can see from the shot, it's quite far down, and there's a significant gain in elevation from the Swananoa River, such that flooding is not a risk here. I mean, obviously it's always a risk, but as you could relate to the applicant's statement that during Helene that it didn't even approach the top of bank, which is also the case for me at Reed Creek, which I found interesting.
Yeah. Have a project over there.
Yeah,
A little bit of flooding, but not significant.
right. Seemed worse at like UNCA area, but yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why it's not so relevant.
So we've heard from the applicant. Is anyone from the public here that would like to give expert testimony or testimony from residents withstanding? Okay, seeing none. Is there discussion amongst the board?
Oh, I have a suggested motion.
Yeah. Oh,
Just a recommendation. And of course, you may edit and add on any additional conditions.
so my only comment to the application and the applicant information that was provided, I just wanted to caution the applicant that providing a rain garden or anything that has a fire retention element to it will most likely require civil engineer drawings from the stormwater department. So you may want to back off your plans in that regard, because that could be a costly endeavor. And if you've already got aquatic buffering that you're mitigating with additional plantings, that may be all you need to do. It's in that brochure, not to say that that was what your ultimate goal was, but I just caution you, and you won't be approving it as you have to do everything in that brochure, obviously. So just something to be aware of. Okay, if someone would like to make a motion, they can read that motion right up there on the screen.
I'd like to make a motion to approve. Motion to approve the applied for variances to reduce the temporary and permanent impact to the 30-foot aquatic buffer and to allow the applicant to construct a single-family dwelling with the requested setback reductions.
May I get a second?
I second.
Okay, board members, when I say your name, please say aye or nay. Elliot Smith,
Aye.
Mike Luciano,
Aye.
Chris Danish,
Aye.
John Michael Cletus,
Aye.
Suzanne Godsey is an aye. Variances have been approved. Okay. All right, our third case today, the petitioner Johnny Kucera, thank you, is requesting variances to the setback standards in section 714-1A1 accessory uses and structures of the Unified Development Ordinance. The applicant is seeking relief from the required setback of the rear property line of 6 feet for an existing garage structure to be converted into an ADU. The property is known as 47 Baird Street and is PIN number 9649-635544. And Sam Starbaum, Planner 3, will be presenting the case this afternoon.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I want to talk about variances for ADUs generally before I get into this. I have heard staff comment today. I've heard staff comment in the last meeting. I've heard staff comment the meeting before, and also from the board as well. You know, that is something that I am in constant communication, I feel like, with you all about. And this is, with the passage of the one earlier in this meeting, this is now the 10th ADU variance that has happened since I have taken over for Nancy as the Board of Adjustment Liaison. And staff hears you. There was an order of operations that had to happen, so I'm sure you've seen the news. I'm sure you've watched the riveting public access television. March 11th, we did pass a bevy of zoning text amendments and UDO updates. Some of them resident initiated, some of them initiated by the city of Asheville. Now that those are done, we have been given the clear condition and the direction from council to move forward with some sort of overlay. Part of that will be the ADU changes. We have language for that. We had language prepared prior to September 27th. Obviously, our timeline for this has been a little chaotic and has been interrupted, but this is something that one of two things will happen. It will either go through as a comprehensive overlay update, or once our fearless leader, Director Stephanie Munson-Dahl, gets back from Argentina, I would also like to pull this out and have this just be an administrative thing that moves forward at least a little more quickly, because this is not a political matter. If you have this many variances to one rule, this is a failure of regulation, and that is what is happening generally. So please don't think that staff hears this every meeting, or we get every application and go, boy, this is a cash cow for $582 for a variance application. This is something we are actively trying to correct and have been for some time. Obviously, Helene Recovery has sort of put a spanner in the works there. So with all of that said, this is the same exact ADU variance you have now seen 9 times before me. This is happening at 47 Baird Street. What is happening here is a little bit different from Daniel's in that there are no size nonconformities, right? So the language that exists in the UDO says it has to be 70% of the primary structure or 800 square feet, whichever is more restrictive. This structure, like the main structure, the home addressed as 47 Baird Street, was built in 1925, 100 years ago, and it's 446 square feet. The applicant will not be doing any additions to this for the family home and for what is in effect a family ADU. The structure size will stay the same. It will be 446 square feet, and I will get to the site plan for that. Again, where are we in Asheville? We are just off of Charlotte Street. This block should look familiar. There have been a lot of planning actions and a lot of, for lack of a better, more technical term, hullabaloo around this. We've seen a suite of level 1s, level 2s, level 3s, and variances here. But this home is what I would say is the most typical home and lot arrangement that you would see in this area as you move from Baird Street north, or certainly as you go along Charlotte and then sort of to the west. And again, this home and the accessory, the garage, which we are calling the accessory structure to become the ADU, were built in 1925. An overwhelming majority of Asheville's central housing inventory was built between 1919 and 1929. This is just one of those. And the zoning does not reflect that. This is what my colleague and I call zoning potpourri. It is a real mix of a little bit of everything here. As you move east and north, sort of along Town Mountain as you move up Sunset Drive, and as you move further to the east over the ridge to Haw Creek, you're going to find more RS8, RS4. You can see in the light yellow, that's what's happening. Charlotte does have its own sort of zoning. It has the overlay, but it does tend to be predominantly CBI, which is there in the purple, and then you see a mix of higher density zoning districts sort of there. We do have RM16 immediately to the south, and then some a little further west. That's the last of it you're going to see basically until you get to Montford, and then further until West Asheville. But what we have here is RM6, and this is what is in all directions. It is for some reason zoned all the way to the center line, so north, south, east, and west of this property is also RM6. That's going to be a very standard medium density multifamily zoning district here. You're going to have your traditional setbacks of 15 front, 15 rear, 6 on the side. Of course, this is an accessory structure and can be 6 feet off the rear and 6 feet off the side if it were built today and in conformance with the zoning standards. That is what the applicant is seeking relief from. When this was built in 1925, it was built 1.5 feet off the rear and 4.5 feet off the side. So that is, you're looking for a 25% and a 75% variance from today's standard respectively. It is also, that is the closest it gets to the property line. It is constructed in a way as such that it is sort of angled, so it does get further away from the property lines on each end. That is just as close as it gets. And of course, it has been 100 years since it's built. The earth is a living, breathing thing. It moves, property lines move and change and swell and recede and things like that as well. So there's just been a little bit of ground movement here, as there has been everywhere. So that is what we are looking at, is just the conversion of this garage that you see before you and that back property line. This will just be that 446 ADU. This is looking from the back porch of the main structure. Here is one view of it, and this is looking more to the side. You can see the tree off to what is the photo on the right. That would actually be to the west. This is looking immediately south, like you're headed towards the interstate or 161 South Charlotte Street. And you can sort of see where on the other side of the tree there is the property line. And in your packet, there is also information of how the applicant proposes to lay out this as an ADU for the 446 square feet. That is as Exhibit 1. I was under the impression I included it here. It appears I did not, but you have certainly had plenty of primers on accessory dwelling units and their variances. So I'll be brief and then I'll be seated. Y'all have any questions for me today?
There's no site plan. It's just photos.
Let me do this for you. And that's on, in the web agenda folder, there should be the packet, and then you go down to the exhibits. Here we are. I will pull it up that way.
Oh, yeah. I have the floor plan. I
Okay.
just meant a site.
Those
plan.
site, yeah,
No,
that's
site plan.
because I haven't had any afternoon coffee. That's what's going on there. But yes, this is the proposed layout of how they intend to use that structure that you had seen in the photos.
So Sam, the intent is to use the same footprint as the existing structure?
Yep.
Gotcha.
No exterior changes to the building other than the door, but it's the same footprint. No height requirements, no additions, no decks. They're just trying to turn the garage, and it's an underutilized space as a garage. If you look at the Google Street View, if you drive by, there's ample parking and driveway apron. It is something where there is also a lot of parking along Baird Street, even though there is grade. So they are just seeking to find a better use for the existing garage that's there. Yeah, there's. Mhm. Yeah, there is no challenge in meeting the required parking for an ADU or the main structure.
Does anyone have any additional questions for Sam? Okay, does the applicant have a presentation or additional testimony for the board to consider?
Applicant is not here.
Okay. Then I guess they don't. Is anyone from the public here that would like to give expert testimony or testimony from residents withstanding? There's also no one here for that as well. Okay, So is there discussion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Board members, when I say your name, please say aye or nay. Elliot Smith.
Aye.
Mike Luciano.
Aye.
Chris Danish.
Aye.
John Michael Cletus.
Aye.
And Suzanne Godsey is an aye. So the variance passes. Thank you for the update on the forthcoming text amendments. I know that the board would appreciate that, as well as all the applicants that are converting structures into ADUs. So that's fantastic. Okay. We have two applications that have expressed their desire to continue their flood variances, and that's 30 Lodge Street and 1 Swan Street. All the other cases have been withdrawn, so we need a motion to continue for each of these flood variances, and that would be to a date agreed upon by the applicant and the board staff liaison. May I get a motion for 1 Swan Street?
Second.
Great. Board members, when I say your name, please say aye or nay. Elliot Smith.
Aye.
Mike Luciano.
Aye.
Chris Danish.
Aye.
John Michael Cletus.
Aye.
Suzanne Godsey is an aye. May I get a motion for 30 Lodge Street to continue to a date agreed upon by the applicant and board staff liaison?
A motion for the Lodge Street.
And I'll second it.
Great. Board members, when I say your name, please say aye or nay. Elliot Smith.
Aye.
Mike Luciano.
Aye.
Chris Danish.
Aye.
John Michael Cletus.
Aye.
Suzanne Godsey is an aye. Okay, if there are no objections, we will adjourn the meeting. Are there any objections? Any additional information? Okay. If there are none, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board.